We are here with Seige AM and Albert Sutiono, and the topic here is daring to make the leap and how a 3D printing startup took on the challenge. So for this part of the webinar is for you, the audience, to ask questions in the chat room with the speakers and also get a more applied and close-up view on how they went about it, what it meant for Seige as a small startup to be part of a broader national initiative, how they went about getting the processes and the resources aligned to start ramping up, and whether on the personal level, they experience stress and sleepless nights, things like that. Yeah, okay. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand on the raise hand button, also in the chat, and we will call you by name and you can unmute yourself to ask. But if you prefer to ask the questions in text, so feel free to type in the chat. So everything is going to be run on the chat, okay? And one more word, if you have any technical issues, please post a private message to our SingX help team. So at this point, I'll hand over to Albert, and he can take it forward in terms of the conversation with the Seige AM guys. Over to you, Albert.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, I think to kickstart the discussion today with Daphne and CJ, perhaps the first questions, can you give an audience a sense of what business as usual was like at Seige before you joined this national initiative? Do you recall your doubts or questions at this point?
So I think before COVID-19, it was we were doing a lot of different business. So we were serving a lot of different industries. And I think our business wasn't that streamlined. So we had some problems looking for a direction to go towards to. But I think after COVID-19, we can see that actually 3D printing is a very flexible thing. And before this COVID-19, we shouldn't think that we are losing direction or what, but rather that this 3D printing is a very flexible thing. So it is definitely okay to serve all different industries as long as you have knowledge about it, or as long as you have the capabilities to. So I think after this COVID-19, we realized that we are still heading the right direction even before COVID and after COVID. So these are just my thoughts.
Yeah, I guess in this COVID-19 facial initiative, I think Seige has been providing thousands of facials. Perhaps I think you have provided some of these PPEs that were produced by facial for us or for the participants to have a look.
Oh yeah, I think there's some pictures, right? Maybe we can flash. Our tech team has some of the diagrams of what y'all actually made, like say the ear savers. Actually, while we do that, right, I just wondered, in terms of like the volume of what you're doing now, right? Can you say that currently PPE production makes up the majority of your so-called business or your activities now? Is it like 100%? Or are you still servicing your old clients in terms of like products and things like that?
Okay, so right now, right, I would say that most of our production is more towards COVID-19 initiatives. Okay, but as for our current clients and our past clients, we sort of extended the timeline. So I think one thing over here is that we are very glad and very happy that they are actually patiently waiting for their parts as we roll out some of the more urgent stuff like PPE, swabs, and things like that. So we are definitely still serving some of our older clients, just that with a longer lead time, with a smaller capacity. So right now, what takes the priority is definitely COVID-19 initiatives.
But compared to the circuit breaker period, the percentage of producing PPE is definitely smaller. So right now we are also, same as the rest of the economy in Singapore, we are going towards more non-COVID related stuff already.
Oh, already? Wow, okay.
But I mean, the majority is still PPE for now.
Okay. Yeah. So what are some of the non-PPE things that you're making, if you can share?
These are all the individual clients, projects and R&D work. So, yeah.
Maybe interesting that maybe you can share about is, we cannot go in depth to the company, but I think we have heard a lot about Singapore being self-sustaining, especially in terms of supplies being cut off, or we're getting lesser supplies. So we need to be more independent in terms of food and things like that. So actually, we are printing for the agriculture industry right now. It's a device for them to make aeroponic more efficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this is, I would say it is not directly related to COVID-19, but sort of related here and there. Yeah, so
Okay.
something interesting that
Yeah.
like
So
share.
yeah. So we managed to pull up the slides. So maybe you can tell us what these are. I think on the left we see some face shields, right?
Yeah, the face shields in this photo are not transparent. It's supposed to be transparent. This one has a protective sheet over the thing for shipping. The one on the right is the ear saver. So that one is supposed to put it at the back of your head and pull the mask strings backwards so that it doesn't hurt the back of the ears. I think this one, there are a lot of people printing it because it's quite simple and easy and fast to print.
To be honest, before this period, I never even thought of my ears in that way, you know, but I know what you mean. It really hurts just wearing a regular mask. So yeah, this is like a very timely invention in a way, I think. Yeah.
And now it's also compulsory to wear, whenever you go out in Singapore. So there's a lot of people who are facing this problem.
So maybe I can switch over to Albert now. I'm just wondering, like, in terms of like beyond Seige, right? Like you mentioned earlier during the recording, you do a lot of mentoring and of startups and ecosystem. Is there some kind of criteria? I mean, how do you know who makes a good candidate to be, a mentee?
Yeah, I think in general, NAMIC, we are very open to talk to any deep tech startups, especially those startups that use 3D printing as, because 3D printing is our expertise. I guess every startup at different stage might require, different support, but there are various mechanisms that we could potentially provide to those startups. For example, we can do collaboration with our research performers to develop perhaps their MVP or their new product using 3D printing. We definitely can involve the startups in the relevant trade show and conference, provide some business advisors, share some industry insights, and maybe access to our networks, such as the investors.
And is there a membership fee?
Oh, no, it's open, so there's no membership fee. We are open platforms.
Okay.
Feel free to reach out to us anytime.
Wow.
You can vouch for that. There's no membership fee.
Oh, that's good. So I guess like I don't suppose you would mean that there's endless capacity in NAMIC to mentor everybody, right? I mean, is there a capacity issue?
Yeah, I guess I think as far as the deep tech startups and especially those startups that use 3D printing, I think we'd be happy to talk to you. Do reach out to us. Me and myself and my team would be happy to talk and partner with you.
Okay, so it's not just you lah. I've just got the
It's not just
impression.
me. It's
Okay.
all together. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So for CJ and Daphne, do you have any particular advice for other aspiring startups? I know you mentioned earlier about like you must have guts lah, right? You must be daring and be willing to make decisions fast and all that. How do you go about identifying, now that you have the experience of doing this, right? The Chinese have a word that they say 眼光, the ability to identify opportunities and all that. Now that you've gotten your feet wet and you have the benefit of the advantage of looking back, what can you tell other up and coming startups now as a more mature one? Any advice for them in terms of spotting opportunities?
Actually, I also do train quite a bit of secondary school students in 3D design, prototyping, things like that, in industry design. So what I always tell them, right, is always fail and always fail fast. So when you fail fast, you will know that probably that's not the right route to go. So for us, I would say that I can tell everyone that we probably don't have the 眼光 or the aptitude to identify right challenge, right direction. What we do have is we will try out different routes and quickly with the least resource to see whether it's a viable option. And if it's not, we eliminate that. So I think that is still probably one of the best way I feel. If it doesn't have the 眼光
Okay.
Yeah.
And Daphne, anything to add to that?
I think more or less the things that I mentioned before. Yeah, more or less that.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions from the chat. Someone was asking, what do you plan to do after COVID-19? Do you have a transition strategy? I think you mentioned that you're starting already, right? To transition, like to start producing more of the non-PPE type of things.
Okay, so actually this is a very tricky period. So within this COVID-19 period, it is very easy for us to get caught by the large amount of demand that we have for 3D printing. So it's very easy to expand like crazy. Then after that, right, you'll find the demand slowly going down. So I was just repeating one of my previous points that I brought up, that we need to scale very conservatively, such that we are still able to transition to the previous demand that we have without having too much capacity, too much spare capacity, because that will take up too much resources.
Right.
So
Okay.
this is definitely one of the transition strategy that we have. The other one is we are with this COVID-19 thing, right? So a lot of industries actually get to know more about 3D printing, and luckily, fortunately, a lot of them started approaching us to see, hey, can you do mass production for this as well, after the COVID-19 period, because we've seen how you guys can actually cope with a sudden surge of demand, things like that. So I think that's a very fortunate thing that happened to the industry of 3D printing. So I believe it's not just for our company, but throughout the 3D printing industry, that people are seeing how useful 3D printing is actually.
So in a sense, this period has been very useful for this whole, for even the small startups like you, because you made the point of proving yourself that you can actually produce in volume, right? So this actually goes very neatly into somebody else's question in the chat room. They were asking, is Seige focusing on mass production using 3D printing tech, or is there an element of exploring novel tech within 3D printing itself? I think it's from the sounds of what you're doing, it's a blend of both. Right, you're not just producing mass, but you're also starting to explore new areas.
Yes, but okay, the end goal for us, right, is still to focus on low to mid volume manufacturing for 3D printing.
What do you mean by low to mid? What's the numbers in?
Yeah, so it's actually a very big number. So it really depends on the item that we are talking about. So maybe just a very big quantity that we are talking about is like 550 to like tens of thousands, that kind of quantity, where it's still too small for injection molding, traditional mass manufacturing to take to play a part. So whatever that we are, actually our company is very focused on low to mid volume manufacturing, still using 3D printing, and that itself is a very I would say that itself is a very novel way of manufacturing already, because we are telling people that you don't need the MOQ. You don't need to meet a certain MOQ to actually start manufacturing. So to a lot of young startups that are, especially hardware-based startups, right, that are looking sort of mass produce their stuff or manufacture on demand, right, it's something that's very interesting to them. It is definitely a method that will help them to reduce the risk, manage their risk, and cut costs.
Okay.
I think just to add a perspective, we envision that 3D printing will not replace the conventional manufacturing entirely, but rather to complement the conventional manufacturing when it makes sense. For instance, parts that require complex design, parts that require shorter lead time, and to a certain quantity that Seige just mentioned.
Yeah, I think we are also, aside from doing mass production, the novel technologies that we are exploring, they actually help to improve our service for mass production. So for example, managing a large print farm or automating everything, that's sort of technologies that we are exploring. So this still goes in line with our mass production services.
Okay. There's one more question from the chat. Someone's asking, are you guys exploring everything that requires collaborators?
Yeah, are there any new initiatives? Yeah,
definitely we are open to having collaborators from different industries. So for example, like what Daphne mentioned, we are putting in quite a lot of resources on automation now of our print farm. So in the field of automation, definitely our own knowledge wouldn't be enough. So we need people who are specialized in robotics, coding, industrial design, and things like that to complement our end goal.
Because 3D printing is a very flexible technology, it can be used in many different industries. So, from the technical side to the non-technical kind of industries. So we cannot be very specialized in everything. So we are finding for collaborators all the time in different industries. Yeah.
Oh, that's very encouraging. Okay. And then actually, Seige, what you said earlier on about looking for collaborators in automation and the kind of thing, right? This actually also answers somebody's question. they're saying, are you guys scaling up? And then are you all still doing it manually? It's just like, it's not just the two of you, right? You must have a team of helpers as well. But beyond that, are you using automation or robotic arms to help the process of 3D printing?
Okay, so for now, monitoring, yes, but the actual physical job itself still requires quite a lot of manual labor. So when it comes to changing of the materials, taking the print out from the print bed, still requires some sort of labor.
Okay.
So there are quite a bit of research from our own company that is doing to automate this kind of manual labor, but it is still in the R&D phase. So it's not rolled out commercially yet.
Okay.
So I think definitely that will be the direction that we're going towards, because it's the only way where we can scale, and we can scale at a efficient manner.
Okay. So I don't think we ever asked you, right? How many people are there in your startup?
Four.
Oh, 4 only. Gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Who are they?
So the interesting thing over here is that we are trying to keep the operator to printer ratio as high as possible. So for example, right now it's 1 to 50 printers. So we're trying to push this number to one operator to like 60 printers, one operator to 70 printers, using as much automation technology as we can make use of that's out there right now.
Okay, so wow, 1 to 60. How much attention? I'm just wondering, in the course of a day, right? This person has to oversee and manage 60 machines. You're saying, is that right?
Probably 3 to 4 hours.
Oh, that's it? Gosh, I was going to ask you how much sleep you get.
Sorry?
I was going to ask you how much sleep you get, because it sounds like a lot. But okay.
How much?
Okay. There's one last question before we transition, because we are lacking on time. Someone's asking, are you all focusing only on FDM or exploring multiple AM technology? I'm not really sure.
Our main focus is still FDM.
Okay.
But we are acquiring printers from technologies like SLA and SLS as well. So these are the three, I would say that these are the 3 main types of 3D printing where you'll get most of the models covered.
Okay.
Anything. Yeah. So not just FDM, we are exploring we are exploring mass production using other technologies as well. Definitely.
Yeah, as the orders come in and as the requirements call for it. Yeah, okay. So I'm very sorry, we are running out of time here. So thank you, Albert, Seige, and Daphne for joining us today.
Thank you.
But hang on, audience. If you have any questions that are too shy to ask, don't worry, you can still catch them by joining the Interchange community platform, where you can post questions, post comments as well, interact with your fellow participants and participate in discussions. So information on joining the Interchange will be shown in the chat room and in an email that you will get after this session. Please do also give us some feedback on today's webinar in that email. There's a link, and also any ideas for future topics in a post-session survey. Yeah, so you also get the link to the recording of today's webinar, I think in the next day or so. So once again, thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in future sessions.